There's certainly a lot of questions out there, and I know you have some answers, and probably more than most when it comes to filling up a concert arena and some of the challenges that are out there. Let's talk about some of the past at this point, and then
Sure.
just see if we can invoke some of the memories for older guys like us.
Good, bad, and indifferent, right?
Good, bad, indifferent. I went and pulled out the first show I ever saw at the Times Union Center, and I talked about this on my goofy Facebook Live, which was April 17th, 1990, at when it was the Knickerbocker Arena. Was this bad boy, Milli Vanilli?
Milli Vanilli, yeah.
I can't believe that was my first show and my first experience in that facility.
Lip syncers.
The lip syncers, and it was totally lip sync that night.
Yeah.
I remember standing on the side of the stage going, these guys ain't singing.
It's amazing. I wasn't here at that time, but I remember the news that happened. And I remember how people, when they went to the show, there were a lot of people that said how great the show was. And then all of a sudden there was a flood of, they were lip syncing. And they weren't really performing live music. And it became like they were the worst people in the world in the eyes of so many. And the image that came out of that, because they were lip syncing, was so damaging. I think that was the first time that we ever saw a major artist or group that were accused of lip syncing and totally damaged their careers.
Destroyed it.
Yeah.
What was your first show at the Times Union Center? Was it the Nick or was it the Pepsi Arena when you got there?
It was the Nick. It was still the Nick. So in '94, I'm trying to think of who would have been the first show. Gosh, there were so many.
It all blurs together.
It all blurs together. Yeah. But I remember, Rod Stewart and, him kicking soccer balls off the stage and then hearing about the lawsuit with somebody that got hit in the head with a soccer ball, not here, but somewhere. There were, there were a lot of shows. Andrea Bocelli sold out. Pavarotti sold out. I mean, we've had everything from classical to country to comedy sellouts, Andrew Dice Clay and stuff that you'd never imagine would sell out, and it did. And then the sports side was phenomenal too. I mean, we've had so many good sports events. My big thing when I first started in '94 was I got to know Glenn Missoula really well, and God bless him, he just passed away last week. But Glenn actually owned the Albany Firebirds, and he was just a great man, and he helped so many young people in this market at that time that worked for him and worked for the organization and have now grown, and they're in their own careers and doing all kinds of other things. But the crowds that came to the Firebirds back in the mid to late 90s, 12,000 plus people every game. Joe Hennessy, God bless his soul, who also passed away, was probably and arguably the best PA announcer I've ever heard at those Firebird games. So winning the AFL championship with the Firebirds was a phenomenal feat. And then just recently, we had the Albany Empire that came in, and they won the championship last year in 2019. And then the league, unfortunately, ceased operation.
We've tried so hard to recreate that magic that happened with the Firebirds.
And they did. We were averaging over 10,000 a game. The bottom line is the Empire was absolutely as magical as the Firebirds were. And there were other teams in the league that were not drawing, and there were some concerns, I think, by ownership about other workers' comp issues and so forth. That was a shock to me. I didn't even have any hint that there was a problem. We came off the Arena Bowl championship, and I was at a conference in Nashville, and I got a phone call mentioning that there was a story out in the Times Union online about the league ceasing operation, and I dropped the phone. I couldn't believe it. But there's been so many other sports events too. The first and second rounds of NCAA basketball in 1995, first year after I started. I was still the marketing director at that time and handling marketing for this big NCAA first and second rounds event, along with, everything else going on in the building. And that was a special event. That was the first NCAA men's basketball event that took place in the arena. And it was a complete sellout. I remember there was a quadruple overtime with Old Dominion versus Villanova. Villanova was a high seed. I think they were a 3 seed. And Old Dominion beat them. And it was, it was incredible. In 2003, we had the NCAA men's basketball East Regional with Syracuse winning it, with Carmelo Anthony being here. They went
And
on
that
to
was
New
that was a
Orleans.
big deal at that time.
That's huge. And the championship of the regional was a sea of orange. So all the other teams that were involved must have sold their tickets to Syracuse fans. And this facility was a sea of orange. And so they won it, and then they went on to New Orleans and they won the national championship.
Yeah, that was big that year, with Syracuse going all the way and starting in Albany the way it should be. Now, Michael Buble was one of those experiences you wanted to talk about today too, wasn't it?
Yeah, Michael Buble. I have a unique relationship with Michael Buble. I've long loved to play table tennis, and I played a lot when I was in school and so forth. And I still play now, quite frankly. But Michael Buble actually required, back in the last time he was here, which was a long time ago, a table tennis table so that he could play. And so I walked down backstage in the afternoon of his show the last time he was here, and he's playing against one of the stagehands. And as I'm walking by, he says, "Hey, you want to play?" So they were at the end of their game, and he beat the guy, and so I said, "Sure." So I got on the table, I started playing, and I thought I was fairly good. I could play. He kicked my ass. I'll tell you what, Michael Buble's got game when it comes to table tennis.
Now, the other one we were talking about the other day was the Rolling Stones, and this one. I found my ticket because I actually had pulled this one out here from September of 2005. And I got to tell you, was one of my favorite shows of all time. I've seen the Stones, I think 3 or 4 times. That was the last time. And that was a special show that night. What do you remember about them?
Well, first of all, I agree with you 100%. That was, in all the shows that I've seen, and it's been almost 2,000, that was the most special concert in my lifetime. I think the Rolling Stones concert here, and it was special for so many different reasons. The music was incredible.
What a set list!
It was a great set list.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And the quality of the voices and the instrumentation, everything was fantastic. In fact, when Mick Jagger and the band came off the stage down the ramp at the very end of the concert, he made the comment to the rest of the band as he was coming down. He wasn't saying it to anybody that would hear him. He just said it to the rest of the band, and I heard it. And he said, "That's the most fun that I've had at a concert since the '60s." And,
wow.
That when you think about all the shows and all the stadium shows and everything else that they've played, for him to make that comment, that was pretty cool. And we had a special time prior to the show too. There was something that happened that was pretty funny. It was incredible.
Well, what happened, Bob?
So, at the time, Mayor Jennings was mayor, and he had reached out to somebody that he knows. Actually, at the time, it was somebody that he knows in the governor's office that is a friend of somebody that manages the band. And so they arranged for the mayor to be able to go backstage. So he arrives to go backstage. He wants to give the keys to the city to the band. So he said, "Come on, Bob. Come with me and we'll give the keys to the city." So I said, "Okay, sure."
Awesome.
So right. So we went into the dressing room, and it's me, Mick Jagger, the mayor, and the rest of the band, right? And so the mayor takes out these, commemorative keys to the city, and he gives them to them. And Charlie Watt is basically left without a key.
Charlie Watts doesn't get a key?
He didn't get enough keys. He didn't make enough commemorative keys. So Charlie says to the mayor, "What about me, mate?" And Mick Jagger is cracking up. He is like laughing. It was funny as could be. And actually, after that ceremony was done, I had an opportunity to actually speak to Mick a little bit.
And you've got some history with him.
Because I've got history with Mick. And you know, I grew up in Montauk. He had a home out there in the 60s, you know, which was kind of his fun place to go when they weren't either on tour or, you know, when they could get out there. A little home in an area called Ditch Plains in Montauk. And so at night, he would go into the local bars like he was just a local guy. And people left him alone. You know, they knew who he was, but they left him alone. And I was probably 17. I think the drinking age then was 18. So I was probably in the bar, shouldn't have been. And I'm sitting at the bar with a couple of my friends, and he walks up and sits alongside, and he orders his beer. I said hello. He said hello back, and then he says, "Hey, the pool table's free. You want to play a little game of pool?" So I said, "Sure." So we played pool. You know, Mick Jagger and me, like it was just me and another guy. And so when I'm backstage at the 2005 concert here at the Times Union Center after the ceremony with the mayor, I said to Mick, "You probably won't remember this, but in Montauk, you and I played pool together." And he says, "Yeah, you're right. I don't remember that." But he says, "I do remember Shagwan Bar," because I mentioned Shagwan Bar, which is right in the middle of town on Main Street in Montauk. And he said, "I remember another bar that was in the Marina area that I used to go to all the time." And I said, "Yeah, that's called the Dock." He said, "Yeah, the Dock." He says, "I used to play darts." I said, "I played darts there too." So it was fun to talk to him about like this town and fun that he had, and not just, "Hey, how's the tour?" or you know, "How are things going with the bus?" Or, you know, it was nice to be able to have a different dialogue that kind of hit home with him, because he absolutely loves the Montauk area. And obviously I grew up there and, you know, went to school out there in Indiana, Long Island, and it's special to me still.
That's awesome. Having some kind of connection beyond, "Hey, great show tonight," or, "Hey,
yeah,
well, you know,
yeah,
sorry we didn't have enough keys for you."
Yeah. That was funny. I'm telling you, there are so many stories. Yeah. I should write a book someday.
I'm going to ask you this because we didn't talk about this the other day, because I was flipping through. I couldn't find my ticket to it, but the other special event there that over the course of all this time, one was the Stones, numero uno. Number two, and I don't know how it happened or how you guys pulled it off, but was July 5th, 2014, where you brought in Paul McCartney. How did that happen?
That was big. That was my, it's hard to even say it was my second favorite, because, you know, they were both so high on the chart of, you know, being great shows. You know, that was interesting because prior to that show, when the Grammys were going on in, I think it was January at that time, January, I can't remember exactly when, but the Grammys were on. And I had a couple of conversations with John Stoll, his manager for, you know, years and years. But I had conversations in November of the prior year. And he said, "Yeah, you know, we might consider Albany, but, you know, there's so many primary big cities that we need to hit first." So I'm thinking, you know, my chances are probably not going to be good to get McCartney coming to Albany. But I'm sitting on my couch with my daughter watching the Grammys, and my cell phone rings, and it's John Stoll, and he's back stage, and he's doing routing for McCartney, and he says to me, "Do you have such and such date open?" And so, you know, I looked at my
Did you know what daughter. It was for at that point?
Oh yeah, he told me it was for a McCartney date. So I said, "Sure." And I just happen to have my calendar on my phone, so, you know, I've got that open. All right, well, hold that for me, because I think we're going to probably use it. So I'm thinking to myself, fantastic. I get off the phone, I look over at my daughter, and I said, "See, Paul McCartney on TV. He was performing on TV at the Grammys when that happened." And so I said to my daughter, "His manager just called me. We've got a date now lined up for Albany." She said, "No way."
That's amazing. That's amazing. You know, Bob, thank you for doing this.
Oh, it's great.
Sharing some of
Yeah.
these experiences. And, you know, that's what it's all about as far as I'm concerned at this point is, you know, sharing experiences, hearing some stories and some of the behind the scenes stuff, you know, of something that's important to me. And I've certainly seen enough concerts. I'm surprised I can still hear anything at this point after all the
Yeah.
shows I've been to. And I've had
Yeah.
so many special nights there. And we just touched on two of the ones with me. Well,
Yeah.
Milli Vanilli wasn't really special, but definitely
Yeah.
the Stones and McCartney.
You know, one thing I just want to add as it relates to McCartney, I think this is really special to so many people. We had a piano in the atrium of the Times Union Center so that when people walked in, we didn't have anybody playing it. But people actually that could play jumped on the piano and they started playing Beatles songs.
That's absolutely right. I saw that night all night long.
It was phenomenal, wasn't it? Just to have the people that his fans came in and they were all, there must have been, you were there, probably 200-300 people singing in the atrium while somebody was on that piano playing.
Easily.
And it was just a really cool vibe before the concert ever started.
Easily one of the cooler things I've seen going into a show. And I remember, you know, I forgot about the piano thing until you just brought that up, but I remember the experience of it and sitting there and standing there and listening and before going in for the show. And like,
Yeah.
wow, what a great pregame to go see a concert.
It was cool. It was really cool. Yeah. But, you know, just getting back, if you don't mind me saying this,
Go ahead.
I don't know how much longer we have, but I just want to say this, and I'm very, very passionate towards this. There are so many people that have worked at the Times Union Center and still work at the Times Union Center or are furloughed and will be coming back. But the people that work here, I mean, many of the people that are full-timers have worked here for over 20 years, 15, 20 years, 25 years. They're dedicated to the Times Union Center. They're dedicated to the people of the Capital Region. And, you know, I feel so awful. You can't even imagine to have to furlough somebody that's been with you and working with you for over 20 years is so hard. And I know that there's so many businesses out there that owners of businesses that are doing that, having to do the same thing in this time with the COVID virus. And so when we get back and the people come back and the employees come back, I want to do something special for the employees. I want them to know how I feel, how I'm sure everybody in this capital region feels a sense to their loyalty, their dedication. You know, that you've seen things in the news about NBA players paying for, you know, furloughed or unemployed arena workers in various different cities. If I had the ability to do that personally, I'd do that myself. But we want to do something, and we're going to do something for the employees when they come back, because they mean a lot to us, and we just really feel bad for the situation that we're in for all the employees. And I'll say that for the arts and entertainment and sports employees throughout the capital region and around the country, because it's, you know, it's devastating to all of them and to all of us. You know, the people that have come into the building, and there have been millions and millions of people that have come through this building. We can't thank them enough, because they've kept us in our careers and they've allowed us to be able to present the best, you know, world-class entertainment. But without the fans, you know, it's like any musician. Without the fans, there is no business. And unfortunately, we can't present the events right now, but we'll be back. And once we're back, we're going to do everything we can to have the very biggest shows and the biggest sports.
Bob, kudos to you and everyone over there. I don't know everyone there like you do. I have a few relationships over there, and everybody's so passionate and just loves what they do, and are so into it. And they're so fortunate and blessed to be able to do what they love. And
exactly.
It's sad to see that be taken away in any regard from anybody.
Yeah.
So, and a tip of the cap to you, Bob, and I've appreciated everything you've done down there for years.
Thank you.
Is you could not get Albany on a routing map in 1989. And now it is. Now it's a stop for people like the Stones or for Eric Clapton or for Paul McCartney, the bigger acts that wouldn't come anywhere near here. And now we see them so regularly. I think we're almost spoiled to a certain degree. And to that, I want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Bob, thank you for taking a little time to talk about Ticket Tuesday and just a little bit of history and some of the things going on down there at the Times Union Center. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. I think you're doing a great deed for the community.
Thanks, Bob.
All right. Have a good day.
All right, man. Take care.